Depth of field is something that happens naturally, and you can achieve the same kind of feeling inside of your renders. An example of depth of field is, let's say you hold your finger close to your eye. Hopefully, you don't go all the way in like I've done once or twice. And when you look at your finger very closely, everything in the distance blurs, and vice versa. If you look at the distance, your finger blurs. And if you look at this render, you'll see that this sphere, this cylinder is blurry. The objects in the center are clean and clear, and then the ones back here are blurry as well. And if we take a look at my scene, you see I have this camera, and I have these, well, they're kind of difficult to see right now, these slightly transparent boxes here. So I'm going to tell you how to set this up from scratch so you can apply depth of field to any scene you like to create. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my camera, and I'll leave my light in the scene, and we'll talk about how this works. So the first thing we need to do, of course, is choose the angle we want to render. And you can always change it at any time. So I'm going to go ahead and get like a train going here where I have all my objects in view. I'm going to add a camera to the scene. And with the camera, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on, if you look in the details tab of the camera, we have depth of field map front blur and the map rear blur. To enable the actual effect, we have to go to our render settings. Now, once you're inside the render settings, you can choose the depth of field from our effects menu. So if you don't have it in there, simply, as a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and get rid of mine. I'm going to go to Effect, Depth of Field, and then we can choose how we want that blur to work. For example, you can choose the distance blur. You can also choose the strength of your blur. Now, if you really want to blur things out quite a bit, you can go ahead and increase this number. It could slow your renders down a little bit, so I'm just going to increase mine to 8%. And I'm going to go ahead and close this dialog box. And what I'm going to do now is make sure my camera is selected. I'm also going to put a protection tag on here just for now, so I can change my angle if I want to. Return to my camera, go to Details, and I'm going to turn the depth of field on. As a matter of fact, let me turn that back off so you can see what it's going to look like when you turn this off. So I'm going to zoom out and show you the camera before we add the depth of field. So we see we have the point of view of the camera, all right, this big rectangle back here with the cameras getting into the viewfinder. And when we turn on either of these guys, you'll see it show up. So let's go ahead and do the front first. Turn it on, and now you see we have this guy right here in the center. You can move it around manually by clicking on the little dot, or you can scrub inside this field here to change it. I'll go ahead and put one for the rear as well. And likewise, I can grab this guy here and I can move this one independently. I'm going to return to my camera view and I'll do a quick render. And as you can see, the ones in the distance are not blurred out as much as the ones in the front. So all you really have to do is manipulate the boxes so that you can choose how much you want to blur. So for example, I can move this here and I can do another render. And now if you look back here, these are really starting to blur less. So just explore and experiment, because depth of field can make your renders look much more realistic. All right, so once again, that is depth of field. All you need to do is enable it on your camera and, of course, inside of your render settings.